Life is strength. This is not to be contested. It seems logical enough. You live, you affect your world. But is it what you need? You are different inside. This woman lives and has strength of a sort. She lost her parents to plague, her husband to war, but she persevered. Her farm has prospered, her name is respected, and her children are fed and safe. She lived as she thought she should. And now she is dead. Her land will be divided, her children will move on, and she will be forgotten. She lived a good life, but she had no power. She was a slave to death. I wonder if you are destined to be forgotten. Will your life fade in the shadow of greater beings?
Man, I wish that Jon Irenicus would start sending dreams to journalists. Can you imagine the quality of writing we would have if journalists actually understood the world? I mean, they may actually start writing almost as good as ChatGPT. I really dislike these articles, by the way. And the thing that I dislike the most about them is when they make assumptions that sound to be objective. So, as you can see here, this month, Ridley Scott will release his epic biopic of Napoleon. But the theory that that history is defined by alpha males feels unfashionable and offensive, right? This is what I hate. It's like feels. Who feels this? You, the journalist. Like, no one else feels this. Everyone knows it to be true. People in China know it to be true. People in India know it to be true. People in Romania, Eastern Europe. I'm even willing to bet that people in your country feel it to be true. The only person that doesn't feel it to be true is the journalist, which I'm willing to bet is single and surrounded by codpiece. I have no idea who wrote this, nor do I care. But the concept of history, right? Like, what are you talking about? Because if you talk about, I don't know, the history of HR, or the history of journalism, or the history of grievance studies, then you're going to notice that, yeah, maybe alpha men are the ones that created these things. And they are not going to be the one that defines the history of human resources, or queer theory, or lesbian dancing mastery. You know, like, a lot of alpha men probably will not define this history. But if you're talking about the history of the nation state, then it is a history defined by blood and sacrifice. I mean, look at Ukraine right now. Who's fighting on the battlefield? Is it the people at the Telegraph? I mean, there are some women that are fighting on the battlefield, but overwhelmingly, there's men. I mean, there's even a law that's being passed in Ukraine that if you're under the age of 18 and you are a man, you can't leave the country. And I remember, I think it was Vice magazine that made an editorial where they were very upset on the fact that, oh, well, this person is transgender and they can't leave. And I was like, yeah, but like, you do realize that if they made an exception for that person, then there would be a lot of men that would identify as women just so they can leave. But my point is that when you look at how the nation state is forged, it is through blood, almost everywhere throughout human history. There's the concept that if you can keep it and defend it, it's yours. That was like the unwritten golden rule of almost every nation. All the people around the world, in the old civilizations, in all societies, everywhere we look, they had to fight, or their ancestors had to fight at one point in order to have their plot of land. Whether it was to fight to take it from someone else or to fight in order to defend it from other people. But it was always a conflict, which was led by the alpha men. Right, so if you talk about the history of the nation state, yes, it's not a Netflix movie. I understand that we like, to push diversity into Hollywood, but unfortunately, life is not Hollywood. Like, I learned this when I was a kid, and I was watching Chinese kung fu movies where they were jumping all the way up, like they were on the ground and they would jump all the way up until the rooftop. And then they would start fighting in midair and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, that's fiction. That is not reality. But for some reason, you have journalists that are watching way too much Netflix, they're watching way too many Disney movies, and they genuinely think that, yes, well, what they see there is probably historical accurate. Pick up a fucking book, for the love of God. It's also interesting, right? Because, again, when you talk about history, you can also talk about history that doesn't even involve any type of people. Like if you're talking about the culture of China, right? And you're trying to figure out certain customs that exist there. Many times you don't know who created the concept, right? Or many times you don't know who created the tradition. You just know that the tradition exists. Like, for instance, who is the first person that decided to have fish and chips in Britain and decided that this dish goes well together? Or who was the first person that decided British people should have an umbrella in public, even if it's not raining? And who's the first person that decided to get rid of this fashion? No, and ironically, like if you look at pictures in old London, you will see, even though it's sunny, like people have umbrellas. I assume it's due to the fact that it was raining quite often, so it shouldn't catch you unaware. But now you don't see it, right? So like, who's the first person that, if you talk about like the culture of fashion, especially when it's very early on, like we're talking medieval time period or we're talking before that, you won't know which are the people that created the trend. So you can talk about history even without talking about people. You're just noticing that the culture existed, you're mentioning it, and you move on. My point is, there are many types of history. This journalist is completely uneducated and misinforming the masses. And the question has to be like, why? Why are they doing it? And the answer is very simple. They're not offended. They're not at all. What they are doing is that they are levying the power of the multi-million-dollar corporation that they work under, the Telegraph, in order to try to tell the public that they're stupid. Like, if you believe that the nation state was created by alpha men, then you're a misogynistic pig, you are uninformed, and you should read more of the Telegraph to broaden your horizons. It's basically trying to re-educate the public, right? Like, they're basically saying not what is true, but what is appropriate to say in progressive circles. If you want to, go to the corporate party where HR is there, you need to think in this manner, even though it's not true. And by the way, most leftists know it's not true, but they will say it nonetheless in order to make sure that they save face among fellow leftists who also know it's not true, but they say it as well, so like no one knows what everyone else thinks. This is why you get these bullshit articles, by the way. It's not about the fact that the journalist feels offended, they just want to say that this is the correct way of thinking. Let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care. Also, if you want to support this channel, there's a link into the pinned comment, or you can help me out by giving a super thanks, and it would be very much appreciated.